Chapter 21 Snape's Special Question. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the underground classroom, Gryffindor and Slytherin first years were gathering. Each student had a crucible on their desk, heated by a constantly burning alcohol lamp. White smoke rose from the crucibles, adding a faint odor to the dimly lit room filled with various specimens. Bang! The classroom door burst open, sunlight streaming through the doorway. Professor Snape, in his black robes, strode to the podium, instantly commanding everyone's attention. There will be no random wand-waving or spellcasting in my class, Snape announced, his sharp voice and severe expression intimidating. Frankly, I doubt many of you possess the capacity to appreciate the subtle science and exact art that is potion-making. However, for the select few, those with genuine interest. Snape's gaze flickered to Aaron and Draco in the front row, as if they were the chosen ones. Draco smirked, clearly flattered, but Aaron wasn't so sure. He knew Snape had barely glanced at him before his eyes darted under the table. Gaius, no pets in my class, understood? Unless you want your cat dissolving in a crucible, leaving nothing behind. That won't happen. He's unusually clever, Aaron replied seriously. Ha! Potion-making is a delicate process. One tiny mistake can ruin a priceless potion. If your cat is the cause, I'll pay for it. Double, Professor. You won't lose out, Aaron countered immediately. And if there are casualties? The Gaius family takes full responsibility. Snape studied the white cat at Aaron's feet, a hint of curiosity masking his stern gaze. He dropped the subject, he tightened his robes and refocused on the students. I can teach you how to bewitch the mind and ensnare the senses. I can tell you how to bottle fame, brew glory, and even put a stopper in death. Aaron heard the scratching of a quill behind him. He glanced back and saw Harry Potter writing furiously, oblivious to everything. He subtly motioned to Hermione next to Harry, urging her to get the bespectacled classmate to stop scribbling. It couldn't be important. Just as Hermione reached out to nudge Harry, Snape spoke. Perhaps some of you arrived at Hogwarts already possessing extraordinary abilities, so confident that you deem it unnecessary to pay attention to my lesson. Snape stalked over to Harry Potter, looming over him. Mr. Potter, our celebrity, tell me, Potter, what would happen if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Aaron was taken aback, turning to look at Snape, a look of regret on his face. Harry stared blankly for a few seconds and shook his head. Don't know. Fine, let's try another. Mr. Potter, where would you find me a bezoar? I don't know, sir, Harry said, his heart sinking. He couldn't understand why Snape was picking on him. The answers were probably in the books, but he wasn't a Hermione. He hadn't been desperate to learn, especially since his aunt and uncle had forbidden him from touching anything remotely magical before school. He was a complete newbie, so there was no way he could answer it. Hermione's hand shot up, but Snape ignored her. What is the difference, Potter, between monkshood and wolfsbane? Snape pressed on. Hermione waved her hand higher, eager to answer for Harry. I don't know, sir, Harry mumbled, sounding miserable. Pity, Snape said calmly. Clearly, fame isn't everything, is it, Mr. Potter? Draco smirked knowingly. Just as he turned to sneer at Harry, he saw Hermione's hand waving in the air, and his smile vanished. Hermione Granger clearly knew the answer that he didn't. It takes capital to mock people. Aaron said softly, only if you are good enough can you stand tall with peace of mind. Well said. Snape turned abruptly. Mr. Gaius, perhaps you can answer my question. Me? Aaron pointed at himself, dumbfounded, then at Hermione, whose hand was still raised. Shouldn't Hermione answer? In my class, there is no answering questions by waving one's hand around like an imbecile, Snape sneered. It's quite unnecessary. He glared at Hermione. Now, sit down. Hermione instantly lowered her hand and sat up straight, but her face was etched with indignation. You may answer, Mr. Gaius. Aaron rose slowly. A bezoar is a stone taken from the stomach of a goat. It's a universal antidote. Monkshood and wolfsbane are the same plant, just different names for aconite. As for the first question, about the asphodel and wormwood, I don't know, I'll let Harry Potter answer that one later. Snape paused, his gaze on Aaron hardening. You are indeed unique. 1 point to Slytherin. Sit down. Thank you, Professor. As for Gryffindor, a certain student has disappointed me. 1 point will be deducted. Snape said without remorse. That's not fair. Harry protested. Aaron didn't answer everything either. Excellent. Questioning my judgment. Another point from Gryffindor. Harry started to say something else, but Hermione tugged at his sleeve, and he fell silent. Potions class continued, Snape pairing the students up. But probably because Aaron brought his pet, he was alone, but that was just what he wanted. After all, a minor mistake in potion configuration could cause an explosion or even more serious consequences. If you don't have a reliable teammate, it would be more appropriate to do it alone. In this class, Snape taught the students step by step a simple potion to cure boils. Except for Aaron and Draco, most of the students, including the Slytherin students, were criticized. Of course, some minor accidents also occurred during the preparation of the potion. For example, a certain student did not add some raw materials in time during the preparation of the potion, causing the potion to treat boils to become a potion to generate boils. This made Snape was furious. However, after getting furious, he still sent the injured student to the infirmary with a cold face. After class, the students rushed to the Great Hall for lunch. Harry grumbled, Snape is the worst. Seriously. He's the most annoying teacher I've ever met, Hermione agreed. What did you expect? Snape was head of Slytherin, he always targets Gryffindor. George and Fred always got points docked by him. Didn't you see how he drooled over Aaron and Malfoy? Ron said angrily. I think I heard my name. What are you discussing? Aaron asked, his little cat trotting behind him. We were discussing a certain professor's favoritism, Ron said, glaring at Aaron. Oh. Aaron feigned surprise. Professor Snape. I think he's all right. It's more than all right, it's also harsh. Hearing what Ron said, Harry nodded in agreement. Strictness is necessary. Potions is a delicate business. No room for error. As for the favoritism, maybe. But house heads always favor their own students, that's harmless enough. But. Harry began, but Aaron cut him off. I know you might feel a little put out, so let me answer Snape's first question for you. Powdered root of asphodel added to an infusion of wormwood creates a powerful sleeping draught, also known as the draught of living death. You knew? That they stared at Aaron, confused why he hadn't answered in class. Sure, I used to read books out of boredom, but Snape asked that question for a reason. It's a question with special meaning, Harry, and it might take you a while to figure it out. You know what it means, don't you? Hermione asked. Can you tell us? Aaron hesitated, then shook his head. I'm sorry, Hermione, I really can't. Harry needs to understand it on his own. But it's not easy to accept. Chapter 22 The Troublesome Dragon Cub. You are listening at novelfull.audio. During lunch, students gathered in the auditorium, splitting into small groups. Aaron peeled an orange for Abe while munching on bread. You really baby that cat. Draco chuckled. Don't underestimate him. In our family, he's practically royalty, top 4 at least. And his pedigree is top-notch in the pet world, Aaron said, dead serious. Suddenly, a loud bang startled everyone. Curiosity piqued, they looked over and couldn't help but laugh. A first-year student stood frozen, wand in hand, a dark expression on his face. In front of him, a cup lay spilled on the table next to an open spellbook. Clearly, his spellcasting practice had gone awry. Just then, the mail arrived. Hundreds of owls swooped into the auditorium, seeking out their owners to deliver letters and packages. Draco's package was full of candy. He opened 2 and placed them on Abe's plate. Abe sniffed, then narrowed his eyes into happy little slits and gave Draco a sweet smile. "Thanks. No problem. I've never seen a cuter cat," Draco said. "Hey, Aaron, what's in your package?" Aaron glanced down at his package. He knew it wasn't from his parents. The only person who'd send him a package was Jean's. Gratitude welled up in him. Now that's what family is all about. But his face fell when he opened it. Inside were two items, a newspaper and a chicken leg. The newspaper was obviously for him, and the chicken leg was for the growing baby dragon, the kicker. A note under the chicken leg explicitly instructed Aaron to bring Abe healthy, nutritious meals every few days and warned him not to overfeed him. Draco, after seeing it, smirked. "Okay, I get it now. That cat's seriously pampered." Aaron just stared. The afternoon brought flying lessons, the equivalent of gym class for muggles, and a class almost all the students eagerly anticipated. Aaron, however, wasn't thrilled. It wouldn't make much difference to him whether he attended the class or not. He was racking up magic points just by signing in at Hogwarts. At this rate, he'd have a magic carpet in 10 days, tops. Who needs a broomstick with tech like that? Besides, when Abe got bigger, he could fly faster than any broom. Wouldn't riding a dragon be awesome? Abe, basking in the sun on the lawn, suddenly shivered. Professor Hooch, with her short gray hair, approached. "Good afternoon, students." "Good afternoon, Professor Hooch." Professor Hooch addressed the class. "First flying lesson starts now. What are you waiting for? Everyone to the left side of your broom." Chop chop, that the students immediately obeyed. Standing beside their brooms, Professor Hooch raised her right hand and explained, "Place your right hand over the broom and say, up. Up. Times N." Harry's broom immediately jumped into his hand. Talk about natural talent. The same went for Aaron. Even though he wasn't crazy about broomsticks, talent won out. The others kept trying, a chorus of up. Filling the air. Some, like Draco, got it quickly. Others, like Hermione, took more than 10 tries. A few students' brooms only twitched. Ron fared even worse, getting smacked in the face by his broom. After 10 minutes, everyone had managed to summon their brooms and held them firmly. Professor Hooch walked among them. "Now, straddle your brooms and hold on tight, don't slide off. When I blow the whistle, kick off the ground hard and rise into the air. Maintain control, hover for a moment, then lean slightly forward to come back down. Listen for my whistle. 3, 2. Before the whistle even blew, Neville's broom shot into the air, seemingly out of control, shaking and bobbing. A moment later, Neville Longbottom, to everyone's mixture of surprise and concern, was airborne. They could clearly hear him yelling, "Help!" Neville flipped and twirled through the air, dizzy but clinging to the broom handle as if wrestling a wild horse. His skills, however, were lacking. The broom careened off the castle walls and then plunged towards the lawn. Professor Hooch drew her wand, trying to stop Neville, but he was moving too fast, zooming past before she could cast a spell. "That's rough," Aaron sighed. "Aaron." Draco tugged on Aaron's sleeve, pointing at Neville. "What? Maybe I'm seeing things, but that white, furry thing dangling in front of Neville's broom looks like your pet." "What? No way." "It's Abe," Hermione said, sounding sure. Aaron squinted. There, clinging to the top of the broom, was a white cat. Its paws were clamped tight, and its adorable face showed no fear, only excitement, a stark contrast to Neville. Humans just couldn't measure up to cats. "I'm going." Aaron cursed under his breath, immediately mounting his broom and giving chase. He wasn't worried about Abe flying, he was born to fly. What worried him was the baby dragon getting too worked up and maybe sprouting his wings. School had barely started. If word got out he had a dragon, he was not ready for that kind of attention. Aaron was fast, and unlike Neville's erratic flight, he had a clear goal. Predicting where the broom would go next, he jumped. The moment he touched Neville's broom, he snatched Abe, who was riding in front. Then, ducking to avoid the wildly spinning Neville, he pulled Abe down. Phew! Close call. Aaron sighed in relief, then glared at Abe, who covered his eyes with his paws, looking sheepish. "You're going to be the death of me. We'll talk about this later." As Aaron landed, Neville's broom, having had its fun, zoomed toward a statue above the castle. The statue's spear snagged Neville's robe, hoisting him at least 70 feet off the ground. A moment later, the robe gave way. After a sharp rip, Neville plummeted. Luckily, when he was 20 feet from the ground, half of his robe caught on a lamppost. The reprieve didn't last. With another tear, the remaining fabric ripped, and Neville continued to fall. Wingardium Leviosa, that when Neville was inches from the ground, Aaron pulled out his wand and levitated him, *thump, *. A few seconds later, Neville landed, the dual buffers preventing any serious injury. The students turned, assuming Professor Hooch had cast the spell. Professor Hooch looked at Aaron, surprised to see that his wand was already tucked away. Like the other students, he was looking at her in surprise. Professor Hooch was momentarily taken aback, realizing she had almost failed in her role as a professor. A first-year student had to step in to prevent a disaster. Professor, I think you should check on Neville. He might be hurt, Aaron suggested. Ah. Yes. Professor Hooch snapped out of it and hurried to Neville, relieved to find only a few scratches that would heal in a couple of days. She addressed the students. Everyone stay on the ground. I'll take Mr. Longbottom to the hospital. Understand? Anyone I see flying will be kicked off the team before they even try out for Quidditch. Neville groaned and, supported by Professor Hooch, headed toward the hospital. As he passed Aaron, he paused and whispered, "Thanks." No one else had seen Aaron cast the spell, but he, standing right in front, had seen it clearly. Chapter 23 The Birth of a New Generation of Seekers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Malfoy snatched a clear ball that Neville dropped on the lawn, hefted it a couple of times, and smirked. Did you see his face? If that tub of lard squeezes this, he'll remember to land on his butt. A bunch of students laughed, and the Slytherins were practically rolling on the ground. Give it back, Malfoy, Harry said, walking over. Nah, I think I'll hide it and let Neville go lookin', Malfoy said, then hopped on his broom, hovered for a second, and shot up into the sky. What's the matter, Potter? Can't reach? Harry glared, grabbed his broom, and mounted it. Just as he was about to take off, Hermione stopped him. Harry, you can't. Mrs. Hooch just told us. Besides, you don't even know how to fly. Harry ignored her, pushed off the ground hard, and zoomed after Malfoy. What a knucklehead, Hermione muttered. Another wizard born to fly, Aaron said, watching the scene with a bit of wistfulness. Aaron, stop watching and get Malfoy down. He might listen to you. Hermione, you might be mistaken. You just told Harry not to go. Did he listen? Well. Exactly. He's my friend, not my errand boy. He might take my advice out of friendship, but I can't exactly order him around, Aaron explained patiently. But, they. Hermione looked up at the two of them on broomsticks, a worried expression on her face. Relax, it's just a schoolboy prank. Professor Hooch is all bark and no bite, Aaron said calmly. If you got expelled for screwing around on a broomstick during flying lessons, Hogwarts would be half empty. And Gryffindor, with its love for pranks, would be leading the pack. Besides, one of the guys up there is the son of a board member, and the other's the boy who lived. Dumbledore's not going to kick either of them out. After a minute, Harry steadied his broom and stopped across from Malfoy. Give it back, or I'll knock you off that thing. Big talk. Harry didn't waste any time and went straight for it, but just as he was about to grab the ball, Malfoy swerved, whipping his broom around in a 360, dodging perfectly. Harry spun his broom around to follow, and Malfoy turned, tauntingly throwing the ball as far as he could. Go get it, then. Harry's eyes widened, and he kicked his broom into high gear, chasing after it. Aaron frowned slightly. Draco was pushing it. The kid's been spoiled rotten. It's gonna take a lot to straighten him out. Harry's a natural flyer. Even though it's his first time on a broom, he's handling it like a pro. He snagged the ball just before it smashed into the castle wall. Of course, Professor McGonagall happened to be working at that moment, because if Harry hadn't caught that ball, it would have landed smack in her office. When Harry landed on the lawn with the ball, the Gryffindor students cheered and ran over, praising him. As they were cheering, Professor McGonagall marched over and gave Harry Potter a long, hard look. "Harry Potter, come with me." Draco and his goons snickered as Harry shrugged and followed Professor McGonagall. "Find something funny?" Aaron asked. "Of course." Harry Potter asked for it. "He'll probably be expelled tomorrow," Draco said, already planning his celebration. "I wouldn't get your hopes up. It's just a minor infraction. McGonagall's the head of Gryffindor. She's not going to expel one of her own for this," Aaron said, raining on Malfoy's parade. "Humph. He just got lucky." "Maybe. But you really shouldn't have thrown Neville's ball," Aaron said seriously. "What's that supposed to mean?" Malfoy frowned. "Mr. Snape said in class that Harry Potter has more fame than brains. The Malfoys, as one of the sacred 28 families, have always represented pure-blood pride. Your family's reputation is just as high as Harry Potter's. It's what your family has built over centuries. What you did just now tarnishes that image. Throwing Neville's ball might seem like a small thing, but what if it was the heir of the Malfoy family who did it? People who know you might think it's a prank, but others might think you're just a bully. Oh, and speaking of which, the Longbottoms are also one of the sacred 28. Malfoy was stunned, then fell silent. He'd never thought of it that way. Draco, who had always been spoiled, felt the weight of his family name for the first time. Pressure, a wave of unease washed over him. "I get it. I won't do stuff like that again." "Good," Aaron said, pleased with his manipulation. Though it wasn't really manipulation. A pure-blood family should defend its honor. There's nothing wrong with that. Meanwhile, Harry was led to the door of the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom by Professor McGonagall. "Wait here," she said, then went inside. "Professor Quirrell, excuse me, could I have a word with Wood?" Professor Quirrell, who was holding a huge chameleon and lecturing, suddenly trembled. After understanding, he nodded immediately. "Why yes, of course." A senior boy with a Gryffindor badge followed Professor McGonagall out of the classroom. She brought him over to Harry Potter and explained, "Potter, this is Oliver Wood." "Wood, I found you a seeker." "What the heck?" Harry was confused. Shouldn't he be getting detention? Why was he suddenly a seeker? And was it a good idea to make someone a seeker when they didn't even know what a seeker was? But seeing the excited looks on McGonagall's and Wood's faces, he wisely kept his mouth shut. The fact that Harry Potter had become the seeker for the Gryffindor Quidditch team was no secret. By evening, the whole school knew. Technically, first-year students weren't allowed to play Quidditch, but that was no problem for Professor McGonagall, the head of Gryffindor and a huge Quidditch fan. She went straight to Dumbledore and easily got him to make an exception, probably because Dumbledore was a Gryffindor grad himself, and Gryffindor hadn't won the House Cup in ages. A Quidditch championship would be a major boost. After dinner, Ron and Harry were walking down the hallway, both buzzing with excitement. "Seeker. The team's never taken a first year before. You'll be the youngest player ever." "Yeah, and the youngest in a century," Professor McGonagall said. "She wants me to start training next week." The Weasley twins, George and Fred, appeared behind them out of nowhere. One of them said excitedly, "Awesome, Harry. Wood told us." "Fred and George are beaters on the team," Ron explained. The other twin said, "Our job is to make sure you don't get completely pulverized. But you might anyway. Quidditch is brutal. It's rough, but no one's ever died. Sometimes someone disappears after a game, but they usually show up a month or two later." Harry's expression changed. He hadn't realized this beloved sport was so dangerous. Was it too late to quit? Probably. The word was out. Withdrawing now would be a major embarrassment. Ron noticed his expression and reassured him, "Come on, Harry. Quidditch is awesome, the most exciting sport ever. And you're a natural. But I've never even played. What if I screw up?" Harry said, worried. Hermione, who was reading a book, came over and said with a smile, "You won't screw up. It's in your genes." She led them over to the Gryffindor Quidditch trophy case. The name James Potter, Harry's father, was engraved on it, Captain, Seeker. Chapter 24 Fighting in the Ring. Snape wants to draw a cake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Severus Snape's office. Aaron wondered why Snape had called him, especially after making him wait over 20 minutes. Still, the guy was a potions master. Shelves lined the walls, crammed with glass bottles and jars. You could find rare ingredients here that were impossible to get anywhere else, and not just ingredients, but tons of finished potions, too. Man, if Snape leaves all this stuff out in the open like this, it's gonna get ripped off someday. Aaron muttered to himself. Someone could make tens of thousands of galleons selling this stuff outside Hogwarts. Enough to live on for years. Suddenly, Aaron felt a chill on his neck, and a long shadow stretched across the wall. Judging by the robes and the hair around the ears, it was pretty obvious who it was. "Ha! Professor, just sayin'. You don't have any traps laid out here, do you? Cut the chatter." Snape glared at him and sat down at his desk. "Do you know why I summoned you?" "How would I know?" Aaron said dryly. "If I knew, why would I be here? You're aware Harry Potter has become Gryffindor's Seeker." "Yeah, the whole school's buzzing about it." "What's that got to do with me?" "I want you to be the Seeker for the Slytherin team." "No way." Aaron said instantly, his tone firm. "Going out on the field to play a game?" "No thanks." Showing off in front of everyone was Harry Potter's thing, not his. Besides, Quidditch was dangerous. If he accidentally crippled someone with a stray bludger, he'd probably be stuck paying a ton in medical bills. Other people might see it as a chance for glory, but to him, it was a completely thankless gig. "Why? You have the talent for it." Snape looked surprised. Almost every student loved Quidditch. He figured he could pick any freshman at random, and they'd jump at the chance, but Aaron just wasn't interested. "Watching a game?" "Sure." "Playing?" "No way. I just don't want to, okay? What if I lose?" "If you really need a Seeker, try Draco Malfoy. He'd love to go head-to-head with Potter." "Really? He was the one who recommended you to me." Snape sneered. "He claims he couldn't hit a barn door on a broomstick." Snape glanced at Abe with interest. "And there's something different about your cat. Something warm." Abe flinched, and Aaron scooped him up into his arms. "That's just your imagination." "Humph. You know better than that." Snape sat up straight. "You're the best candidate right now." "Yeah, right." Aaron rolled his eyes. "Professor Snape, I respect you a lot, but if you've got a beef with Harry Potter, don't drag me into it. Plus, it's not fair to Slytherin's current Seeker. We Slytherins gotta have principles. We can't just ignore a student's feelings because the head of house is in a mood. Don't worry about that. I've already spoken with Terence. He'll cooperate, prove you're good enough, and that's all that matters. Slytherin's reputation is on the line. He won't refuse to step aside." Aaron paused. "So, Terence was Slytherin's current Seeker. Professor, that's low, even for you. But hey, the student I'm talking about is me. You can't force me to play Quidditch." "Force you?" Snape said smoothly. "I'm just offering you a chance to win glory. A little favoritism, maybe." Aaron was speechless. He could pass on that kind of favoritism. "You want me to prove I'm better than the other guy? When the time comes, he'll just throw the game." Snape saw right through Aaron's thoughts and said calmly, that's settled then. Play nice, otherwise, I might have to remind the headmaster that pets aren't exactly welcome in the classroom. You. Aaron sighed. Professor Snape, it's not like that, Harry's just a first year. Even with talent, he might not be better than Terence. Why not? I don't know what Potter's capable of, but I know Professor McGonagall. She wouldn't have made Harry Seeker if he wasn't up to snuff. She bent the rules first. Why can't I make a last-minute change? I just want to show that Slytherin students are better than Gryffindor students. They have Harry Potter. We have Aaron Gaius. Aaron raised an eyebrow, surprised Snape had such high expectations. Okay, maybe I could be Seeker. But what's in it for me? Snape crossed his arms, studying Aaron. Quidditch points count toward the House Cup. Winning would be a major accomplishment. You'd have the respect of every Slytherin student. Aaron's mouth twitched. Empty promises, he did have a mission related to the House Cup, but Snape didn't know that. Professor, you gotta give me something real. That line about respect only works for babies. I'm a pretty materialistic guy. Aaron glanced at the finished potions on the shelves, making his point clear. Snape's mouth tightened. He stood up to block Aaron's view. I'm curious. You're a Gaius. You're loaded, like the Malfoys. Shouldn't you have everything you want? Yeah, but once I'm at school, I don't want to hit up the family for everything. Aaron tried to sound sincere. He didn't want to, but who knew what would happen? If he ran into trouble he couldn't handle, he'd probably have to ask for help. He suddenly thought of Voldemort's soul fragment in the mission and eyed Snape with new interest. If you're the head of Slytherin, you must be pretty powerful. Taking out a soul fragment shouldn't be a problem. If he could get Snape to help with that, he could earn 1,000 magic points. For some reason, Snape suddenly felt a chill down his spine. What are you thinking about? Nothing, I'll join the team if you promise to help me out once before the end of the year. No impossible missions, just something you're capable of. Snape's expression darkened. Aaron, are you negotiating with me? You could say that. And I'm only playing this one Quidditch match. I won't be responsible for anything else. If you don't agree, forget it. Snape thought for a few seconds, then nodded. Fine. It's a deal, but you better beat Harry Potter on the field. There will be consequences if you don't. Yeah, I got it. To be honest, Professor, you're kind of a mess. I've never seen anyone so conflicted. In the first potions class, you were basically apologizing to Harry Potter. It was subtle, but you clearly cared. That'd be fine if you just didn't want him to know, but after that, you were all over him, like you hated seeing him do well. What's that about? Get out, Snape snapped, pointing at the door. Aaron was about to say something, but Snape repeated, don't make me say it again. Get out. Fine. Aaron stood up and walked out. As Aaron was leaving, Snape said, by the way, Mr. Gaius, you do well to not meddle in my affairs. Don't worry. I'm not that curious, and I'm not that interested in your past, just consider it, my respect for you. After Aaron left, Snape smiled wryly. What an annoying little wizard. Chapter 25 Seniors of the Academy Team. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 7 p.m., Quidditch pitch. Slytherins got the field today. The house team's 7 players are waiting, and Terence, the Seeker, looks a little ticked off. Turns out, some hotshot first year is challenging his spot. Snape personally recommended this kid, so Terence couldn't exactly say no. Guess he'll have to prove himself. He couldn't believe some 11-year-old who's never even played could take him, an experienced Seeker. No way. A few minutes later, Aaron shows up, Abe trailing behind him, and Snape's with them too. The team looks uneasy. If it was just Aaron, they could have shown him who's boss, but with Snape watching, they've got to play nice and can't pull any stunts. Hey. Evening, everyone. Aaron says, all smiles, and shakes hands with each of them, acting super enthusiastic. Nobody wants this kid joining the team through connections. but they don't want to be rude to the guy either. With Snape standing right there, they're stuck being polite, even if they don't want to. Snape's got serious clout in Slytherin. Alright, enough with the pleasantries. Don't tell me you dragged me out here just to watch you guys be friendly, Snape says, scowling. Of course not. Aaron turns around. I'm just trying to avoid trouble. I'm a new Slytherin, but I've been here 2 weeks, so I know how things work. Some Slytherins are, let's just say, a little intense, especially the Quidditch team. Bending the rules is their favorite pastime. I figured they wouldn't exactly roll out the welcome mat for a newbie like me if I didn't bring some backup with serious authority. I'd spend half the afternoon dealing with their hazing. I could handle it, but one less headache is always a good thing, right? Snape glares at the 7 players, who are clearly grinding their teeth but not saying a word. His face darkens. Look at you lot, embarrassing the whole house. Does Slytherin crumble at the first sign of competition? I'm not saying he's replacing Terence outright. May the best player win. But if you don't have the guts to compete, hand in your broom and quit the team. Otherwise, prove you're better. The team's mortified by the scolding. It wasn't as bad as Snape made it sound. They weren't scared, just a little annoyed, but no one's brave enough to argue with Snape when he's in this mood. Hey, Professor Snape, it's cool, Aaron says. They didn't mean anything by it. He turns to the team, looking apologetic. Don't worry, I'm only playing in this one Quidditch match against Gryffindor. I'm not trying to steal Terence's spot. Dean Snape just thought Gryffindor replaced a Seeker with a first year, and we Slytherins couldn't let them show us up, so they twisted my arm to compete against Harry Potter. I promise I'll quit the team after this one game. It won't mess with your team dynamic, and I won't play in any more school matches. The team exchanges looks, a little stunned. They thought Aaron was just a teacher's pet, but turns out there's a whole story, and he's being sincere. He's even giving up Quidditch completely. That's some commitment. They're starting to feel a little guilty. Snape's got a twitch in his eye that no one notices. If you don't want to play, just say so. Why the big production? This kid's a smooth operator, though. A few words, and he's got these Slytherins eating out of his hand. The Gaius family has a real charmer on their hands. The kid could lie to your face and you'd believe every word. Enough nonsense, Snape snaps, then turns to Aaron. All the sweet talking in the world doesn't change that you have to prove your worth. Professor Snape, I hear you loud and clear. Aaron replies humbly. I might not be as good as Terence, but I need to earn the team's respect, or I'm not fit to represent Slytherin. Just remember that. Thanks, Professor. But before we start, there's something I need to say. I'm pretty busy, and I might not have much time to practice before the game. Snape and the team frown. Talent's great, but you can't just waste it. You can't just show up on game day without practice. Don't push your luck, Snape warns. Professor, hear me out. I want to compete with the team 3 times. All a Seeker has to worry about is the snitch, so whether or not I train isn't really that important. For the first game, let's just have the golden snitch out there. First one to catch it wins. If I win, that proves I can hang in this Quidditch match. The second game is also a snitch hunt, but a little tougher. We'll add 2 bludgers to the mix. If I somehow win that, it proves the first game wasn't just luck. Then everyone can believe I can handle the spot, and for the third game, same thing, snitch plus bludgers. But this time, you guys on the team get to attack me with quaffles. I can't use a bat, though. If I, an 11-year-old freshman, can still win, then. Aaron pauses, grinning at the team. Just don't bother me about training before the game, and... You're trying to take on the whole team by yourself. Captain Marcus interrupts, annoyed. That's just asking for it. Hey. Of course not. What are you saying? I just want to simulate the game as much as possible. You. Marcus is about to blow a gasket when Snape cuts him off. He looks at Aaron. Anything else? Also, no fouls during the actual game, Aaron says seriously. It's not worth winning dirty. I won't foul, but I don't want people saying Slytherin only wins because they cheat. Of course, you guys don't have to agree to the third game, just the first two, but you also can't ask me to come over for training before the official game. You bet we agree. Why wouldn't we? Marcus sneers. But trust me, you'll regret this. Great. Professor Snape can be our witness. Everyone turns to Snape, looming in his black robes. He glares at Aaron. You sure you want to do this? They might not hold back. Positive. But what? If I need help, you have to save me, Professor, Aaron says, all innocent. Snape's mouth twitches. So you can be scared. Of course, why else would I bring you here? If you were just here to show support, then your level as the dean is too low. Hearing Aaron's confident tone, Snape nodded blankly with a dark face, then looked at the academy team standing aside, ready to teach Aaron an impressive lesson, and said calmly, I agree. It's been 3 games, but you must not be polite to me. I will take care of you when the critical moment comes. The 7 members of the academy team looked at each other and nodded in unison. Chapter 26. Isn't it just 1 versus 7? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Aaron and Terence straddled their flying brooms, parked on opposite sides of the court. Snape released the golden snitch, which zipped around the twilight sky, its tiny wings a blur as it darted this way and that. Spotting it wouldn't be easy. 10 seconds later, a buzzing reached Aaron's ears. He instinctively reached out to grab it, but came up empty. The golden snitch was fast, only slightly slower than the brooms, and it had easily dodged his grab. Terence had noticed Aaron's movement. Spotting the snitch, he immediately steered his broom toward it. Aaron spread his hands, gave Terence a harmless grin, and spun around to chase the snitch himself. Being close had its advantages, even if they were fleeting in Quidditch. Unless the snitch flew straight, Terence would catch up in seconds. Catching a snitch with an erratic flight path in that time was nearly impossible. The snitch began circling the court, and Aaron stayed right on its tail. No matter how sharp its turns, he matched them, closing the distance. It was hard to admit, but everyone could see that Aaron's flying skills were a step above Terence's. Terence realized this too, so he changed tactics, abandoning the chase from behind. Instead, he tried to anticipate the snitch's path and cut it off, but his sudden appearance startled the snitch, causing it to momentarily pause. Despite being a ball, it clearly didn't want to be caught and wasn't about to fly into someone's hand. That tiny pause was all Aaron needed. A hand shot out from behind and snatched it from the air. Terence stared, stunned. After braking hard, he shook his arms a couple of times in frustration. Sorry, Senior, Aaron said modestly. Looks like I got lucky this time. Terence just grunted, turned, and flew back to his starting point. Aaron tossed the golden snitch back to Snape. Professor, almost time for the second round. Don't you need a break? Snape asked. Quidditch matches were physically demanding. Even an informal game, 3 rounds straight was a lot to ask. I'm good, Aaron replied, glancing at Terence. Just wondering if Senior Terence is. You don't need one, neither do I. Seeing their determination, Snape nodded and walked to the center of the court, opening the box containing the bludgers. 2 black iron bludgers burst out. About the size of bowling balls, their sole purpose was to knock players off their brooms. The golden snitch was released again, and Snape sent a flare into the air to signal the start of the game. Aaron and Terence's faces turned serious. It was one thing to chase the snitch, but with 2 aggressive bludgers thrown into the mix, they had to be on their guard. This wasn't a real match. There were no beaters to protect them, so they had to avoid the bludgers while trying to catch the snitch, or risk getting seriously hurt. Whoosh! 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 The sound of bludgers whizzing through the air filled the court. They flew erratically, while Aaron and Terence resumed their hunt for the snitch. Aaron spotted it first, but his luck wasn't great this time. The snitch was closer to Terence. The chase was on. The snitch flew as unpredictably as before, darting around the walls, diving down, and weaving between the support pillars, using the stadium structure to evade the 2 seekers. it would do anything to escape. This was a test of skill. Without a good handle on your flying and a desire for quick victory, an accident was likely to happen. Terence was a decent seeker, but not good enough. Compared to Aaron, he was too cautious, maybe even a little afraid of getting hurt. At first, he could focus on the golden snitch, but as the chase went on, the pressure mounted. The sound of the bludgers slamming into the stadium was unnerving. When Aaron caught up, Terence was clearly paying more attention to the bludgers. With both iron balls targeting them, the danger was multiplied. The feeling of a bludger whizzing past your head was not fun. Finally, after several minutes, Aaron caught the golden snitch, winning the round. Snape immediately stopped the two bludgers to prevent them from continuing to fly. Snap! 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 Snape clapped his hands, expressionless. A very exciting match. So, third round. But before he could finish, the rest of the Slytherin Quidditch team rushed into the arena, with Marcus even giving Aaron a challenging look. They recognized Aaron's skill after the first 2 rounds, but they couldn't let him win this last one. They'd lose face. Just imagine, the entire Slytherin team defeated by a freshman. They'd never live it down. Hold on, Professor, I need a 10-minute break. Aaron raised his hand. Oh. Snape's lips curled into a sneer. Losing your nerve? Aaron smiled awkwardly. I know my limits. In the first 2 rounds, it was just me and Senior Terence, both of us getting tired. It was fair. But now I'm facing a whole team. If I don't catch my breath, I'm going to get crushed. Humph. You've proven your skill. It's not too late to back out now. It doesn't matter if there's a 3rd round or not. Slytherin still have some honor. 7 against 1, they're sure to win, but it's still bullying. So, it's just us on the court. If I don't say anything, you don't say anything, and they don't say anything, nobody has to know, right? Aaron grinned. Snape considered for a moment, looking at Aaron with newfound respect. You have 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes, the next game begins. Thanks, Professor. Aaron grinned and flew down. He pulled a lollipop from Abe's pocket, unwrapped it, and popped it in his mouth. Ahem. Snape stared at Aaron oddly. Mr. Gaius, are you unaware that the undetectable extension charm isn't to be used casually? Undetectable extension charm. Aaron looked at the candy in his hand and the somewhat disgruntled Abe, and thought of his carelessness. He pretended to look confused. Professor, I think you've misunderstood. There's no undetectable extension charm on him, he's just used to holding snacks, but what you said just now is a good idea. I'll send a letter home tomorrow and have them make a special pouch with the undetectable extension charm for Abe. Snape's face darkened slightly, and he simply looked away. 10 minutes later, Aaron flew back onto the court to face the Quidditch team, who looked a little embarrassed but were still determined. As Snape gave the signal, the golden snitch and 2 bludgers appeared at once. Aaron didn't immediately search for the golden snitch. Instead, he focused on the 6 members of the team, excluding Terence. This round was the most difficult and dangerous. Terence could search for the snitch at his own pace, but Aaron couldn't. Besides catching the snitch, he had to avoid the 6 seniors. His only advantage in this difficult match was the 2 bludgers, which didn't discriminate between players. Aaron's strategy was simple: stall, while trying to evade the team. He also did his best to interfere with Terence's hunt for the snitch. He treated the 2 bludgers as allies, often leading them toward his opponents. A dangerous game. Through this crude, underhanded, and dangerous tactic, Aaron managed to hold out for over an hour. He even knocked Marcus off his broom with a bludger. The team captain was pathetic. He'd meant to block Aaron, but ended up blocking 2 bludgers. That act made Aaron reconsider his opinion of Marcus. The captain was actually thoughtful. He might complain, but he was a good senior. He blocked 2 bludgers for Aaron, a new player who wasn't even on the team. Chapter 27. Boys should be cruel to themselves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After an hour of brutal back and forth, trading blows and casualties, for every 800 points Aaron's team scored, they lost 1,000. Aaron finally snagged the golden snitch just ahead of Terence. The price? A bludger broke his right arm, he grimaced, flying the broom one-handed down to the field. The tension drained out of him, and he nearly face-planted on the lawn. Abe, his familiar, bolted over, looking worried sick. He turned on the 6 players straggling down from the sky, snarling. This was the first time Abe had really lost it. Fangs bared, the fur on his back stood on end. Aaron quickly clapped a hand on Abe's back, silently shaking his head, warning him not to show his wings. "Sorry, guys. Looks like I lucked out again," Aaron said, gritting his teeth through the pain. "Don't forget our little bet. No extra training, and keep the fouls out of the official matches." The academy team was silent, even the usually cocky Marcus. They didn't want to admit it, but they'd been outplayed by a first year. The bottom line, he was tougher than them. After Marcus went down, the remaining 6 were ticked off, stepping up their retaliation. Initially, they just planned to mess around before taking Aaron down a peg. Turns out, the kid was surprisingly hard to shake. He kept wriggling out of tight spots. By the time they started getting winded, they couldn't stop him anymore. He gradually created opportunities to chase the snitch. He might not have had much time, but it was better than letting Terence get a clear shot at it. Whatever, let him waste his energy. The first to crack loses. With Terence and the others, they were 6-1. The odds were stacked in their favor. Even if they wanted to lose, it seemed impossible, but the kid didn't play by the rules. In the final seconds, the golden snitch and 2 bludgers converged. Terence, the seeker, hesitated. He was a little skittish about flying into that mess, trailing behind. Aaron saw his chance and dove straight in, snatching the snitch right under their noses. Sure enough, 2 bludgers came hurtling his way. He dodged one, but the second slammed into his right arm. The bone crack was sickeningly loud. Without a sound, he reached out with his left hand, grabbed the snitch, and won the game. They couldn't have done it. Plain and simple, it was just a scrimmage, not even an official game. No reason to risk life and limb even in the real deal. They wouldn't sacrifice an arm for a sliver of a chance, but Aaron did, and it paid off. After 2 hours of intense play, they knew Aaron wasn't some bonehead relying on dumb luck. He'd obviously calculated the risk. 11 years old. And this ruthless through this insane play, those 7 stuck-up Slytherins realized Aaron was a whole different level of crazy. "Since you guys aren't saying anything, I'll take that as a yes," Aaron said, slowly standing. "They'll keep their word," Snape said, glaring at Marcus. "You know what's expected before the Quidditch matches. You're the captain. Set an example. If you can't even handle this, don't call yourself my student." "Understood." Marcus nodded. No more slacking off. If they wanted to win, they had to train. "Don't disappoint me," Snape said calmly, supporting Aaron. "You're not in good shape. I'll take you to the infirmary." "Okay. My arm feels like it's about to fall off," Aaron said, wincing. "About to?" "Mr. Gaius, be more confident. It is broken." Aaron chuckled. "Professor, if you'd been a little quicker on the uptake, this wouldn't have happened." Snape's face twitched. "You flew headfirst into it. No one expected that, so don't try to blame me. Besides, you did yell for help." Okay, you're blameless. But Professor, you really have no sense of humor." They reached the infirmary, and Madame Pomfrey rushed over. She sized up Aaron's arm and said sternly, "How long has school been in session? A freshman breaking his arm playing Quidditch." "Madame Pomfrey, I know my student's condition better than you," Snape said coolly. "Save the lecture for later. Curfew's almost here, and I don't want to have to deal with him in detention. Just heal him quickly." "Humph. Wait a moment." Madame Pomfrey took down a small bottle of red potion. "Drink this, rest for a night, and you should be good as new. But take it easy on that arm for a couple of days, or you'll be back." "Got it." Aaron grabbed the bottle and chugged it down. The potion tasted awful, bitter and sour. But the effect was instant. Within seconds, Aaron's arm felt warm. The pain turned into a slight itch, and he could even move it a bit. Need a sling? Madame Pomfrey asked. No, I'm good. If you don't want detention, you can stay here for a couple of days. I'm sure Professor Snape will write you a note. Aaron was tempted. Getting out of class sounded amazing. First-year classes weren't that important, and he could learn most things from books, but the empty, white hospital beds gave him the creeps. Hogwarts had its share of ghosts, but the dorms were way more cozy. Thanks for the offer, Madame Pomfrey, but I don't want anyone to know I'm hurt. Besides, I'm not seriously injured, so I won't miss class. Madame Pomfrey smiled. All right. Little wizard, if you're that determined, I won't force you to stay. Curfew's in 20 minutes. You can still make it back. Got it. Aaron stood and headed for the door. Snape walked him all the way to the common room entrance, his face as stone-like as ever. He cared about his students, but he had a terrible way of showing it. Professor, if you weren't so grumpy all the time, you'd be way more popular, Aaron said pointedly. Ha! As if I care what you think. I was just worried you'd get lost or miss curfew. If Filch caught you, Slytherin would look bad. Sure, Professor, you're right. Aaron gestured not to the common room entrance, but to the passageway beside it. This was the student common room, after all. If he invited Snape in, everyone would have nightmares. Snape grunted and left. Aaron gave the password, opened the door, and snuck into his dorm. Malfoy was there, looking surprised. What's up? Why are you back so late? Aaron glared at him. Thanks to you, Snape wanted me to try out for the house team 2 hours. I'm exhausted. Malfoy looked embarrassed but also excited. You passed, didn't you? Of course. The upperclassmen all agreed. I'm Slytherin's new seeker. Awesome, Malfoy said, with you on the team, we'll beat Harry Potter for sure. Aaron, how much does this kid hate Harry Potter, whatever. They were just 11 years old. He'd treat it as a joke. Ahem. We'll talk about that later. You have to keep my seeker status a secret. I don't want anyone to know before the official match. Don't worry, I'm good at keeping secrets, Malfoy promised. Looking at his face, Aaron had a sinking feeling that the secret was already out. Chapter 28 Voldemort's Attachment Object. You are listening at novelfull.audio. More than a month flew by, and it was Christmas Eve. Today's Defense Against the Dark Arts class was a joint session for Slytherin and Ravenclaw. Professor Quirrell, still bundled in his thick purple turban, held a large chameleon and stammered through the theory of defense against the dark arts. Even with his peculiar way of speaking, this class was already more engaging than the snooze-fests that were astronomy and history of magic. Speaking of history of magic, I don't know what the school was thinking, but they actually hired a ghost to teach it. Sure, ghosts have more life experience than anyone, but the ghost they got wasn't exactly sharp, and he'd wander off topic mid-lecture. Professor Quirrell seemed unwell, even weaker than usual, like he was recovering from a bad illness. Aaron considered this a personal matter and didn't pry. But one thing did catch his attention. When Professor Quirrell walked past Aaron, Abe, who had been dozing on the table, suddenly perked up. He stood on all fours, baring his teeth at Professor Quirrell, eyes locked on his turban. Mr. Gaius, is there something wrong with your cat? Quirrell asked nervously, involuntarily stepping back. Aaron quickly scooped up Abe, saying with a hint of awkwardness, Professor, my cat got a little sick from eating garlic recently, and the smell on you, it's just too strong. Aaron didn't buy his own excuse. Defense Against the Dark Arts was twice a week. It had been weeks since school started, and they had taken this class at least a dozen times, but Abe hadn't acted like this before. And on top of that, his cat never touched garlic. Really? Quirrell swallowed hard, eyeing the fierce cat that looked ready to pounce. I'm terribly sorry. Should I keep my distance? That might be best. Aaron said with a forced smile, moving Abe to the far corner of the table. Better safe than sorry. With the distance increased, both professor and cat seemed to return to normal. Abe still seemed wary, but Aaron caught a strange glint in Professor Quirrell's eyes, a cold, murderous look that made him shudder. Damn it. Professor Quirrell was definitely hiding something, not as meek as he appeared. Or rather, his meekness was a front. Something was seriously wrong with this guy. Otherwise, Abe, with his divine affinities, wouldn't be so repulsed. Suddenly, a thought struck Aaron. Could Professor Quirrell be possessed by Voldemort? It wasn't impossible, and actually pretty likely. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. He immediately schooled his expression. If his hunch was right, he couldn't let Quirrell suspect a thing, or he might find himself facing Voldemort way too soon. Voldemort's goal was stealing the Sorcerer's Stone, and he wouldn't expose himself until he had it, but better safe than sorry. Thankfully, Quirrell was too preoccupied with the seemingly harmless Abe to pay much attention to Aaron. He hadn't noticed the whirlwind of emotions that flashed across his face in those few seconds. Aaron's nerves held. He acted normally until the end of class and slipped out of the room without incident. That was close. I thought Quirrell was going to corner me. Aaron thought with a nervous sigh of relief. As long as Quirrell didn't suspect anything, he was confident he could maintain the facade next time. For now, he'd play it cool. The afternoon was charms. After weeks of basics, Professor Flitwick finally decided the new students were ready for actual spells. Gryffindor and Slytherin students sat on opposite sides of the classroom, each with a white feather on their desk. Professor Flitwick, barely bigger than a garden gnome, stood perched on a stack of books, ready to lecture. A fundamental skill for any magician is levitation, the ability to make objects fly. Everyone got their feathers. Hermione immediately shot her feather into the air for Professor Flitwick to see. Excellent. Now, remember the wrist movements we've been practicing, flick and swish, all together. Professor Flitwick pulled out his wand to demonstrate. You must enunciate clearly, Wingardium Leviosa. Now, practice. The classroom erupted in a flurry of wand waving and incantations. Aaron smirked. He'd learned these simple spells years ago. He used the levitation charm to fly a kite back when Abe was just an egg. He gave his wand a gentle wave, not even bothering with the incantation. The white feather lifted off the desk, slowly floating to the ceiling. Everyone stopped what they were doing, staring at the floating feather. While they were impressed by Aaron's talent, they couldn't help but feel a bit discouraged. Wonderful, look here. Mr. Gaius has succeeded. Professor Flitwick chirped excitedly. The rest of the class doubled down. Ron chanted the spell, but clearly forgot the wrist movement. He kept swinging his wand wildly, creating a whirring sound in the air. Stop it. You're going to poke someone's eye out. Hermione, sitting next to him, snapped. Besides, you're pronouncing it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. Oh, you're so smart, why don't you give it a shot? Ron retorted, annoyed. Hermione didn't reply, just picked up her wand and flicked her wrist. Wingardium Leviosa. Another feather floated into the air. Ron gaped, then sulked, burying his face in his textbook. Draco Malfoy was the third to succeed, but he glared at Hermione with a hint of resentment. Even though he was third, the gap between him and Aaron and Hermione was still significant. They'd nailed it on the first try. It had taken him at least 5. You picked up this spell pretty fast, Aaron offered. But Draco, you've got plenty of talent. But Hermione spends all her time reading books except when she's eating, in class, or sleeping. If you did that, you'd be just as good. Malfoy looked stunned, then stared at Hermione in disbelief. Why was she sorted into Gryffindor? Shouldn't she be in Ravenclaw? Who knows? Maybe she has more guts and courage, more than her thirst for knowledge. Accepting the explanation, Malfoy shut up and turned to coach his 2 sidekicks on the spell. Boom. A blinding flash and a loud bang startled everyone. Professor Flitwick nearly tumbled off his stack of books. They all looked to see Simon, face blackened and hair standing on end, sitting dazed, frozen like a deer in headlights, looking at the charred remains of the feather on his desk. It was easy to guess what happened. His deskmate, Harry Potter, had also taken a hit, with half his face blackened. We'll need another feather over here, Professor Flitwick. Aaron shook his head. Simon's talent for magic was unique. If there were 10 explosions in the classroom, he'd cause at least 5 of them after class. Ron stomped down the hallway, complaining to Harry, Simon, and a Gryffindor friend, "It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. She's such a pain in the butt, I can't stand her. No wonder she doesn't have any friends." Just then, Hermione hurried past, books clutched to her chest, and bumped into Ron's arm. Her face was red, and she was even close to tears. "I think she heard me," Harry said. "So what? She doesn't have many friends to begin with," Ron replied, looking annoyed. "Ahem." Aaron materialized behind them. "That's not true. I'm her friend, for one. Also, a little friendly advice. If you don't want to lose Hermione as a friend, you should apologize, you too," he said to the Gryffindor student. "Talking behind someone's back isn't cool." "Why?" Ron looked a little guilty, but seeing Aaron's Slytherin robes, he puffed up his chest. "I didn't do anything wrong, and it's none of your damn Slytherin business." "Oh. Is that what you think?" Aaron sneered. "I was actually going to try and smooth things over between you and Malfoy, but I guess I overestimated things." With that, Aaron turned and walked away. Harry wanted to stop him, but kept his mouth shut. Chapter 29 Trolls Appear. I didn't expect you to have such a habit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As night fell, the students all headed to the auditorium for the Halloween party. The school had gone all out decorating the ceiling. Dark purple light illuminated low-hanging, shadowy clouds that seemed to drift across the sky, punctuated by flashes of silver lightning. Even the usual candles were fitted with pumpkin shells, their flames flickering and adding to the festive mood. But the real highlight was the dinner, a feast rivaling the start-of-term banquet. Everyone dug in, and the atmosphere was buzzing with excitement. Aaron, however, noticed Hermione wasn't at the Gryffindor table and frowned. "You okay, Aaron? You look troubled," Draco asked. "I'm fine," Aaron said, before heading over to Harry. "Where's Hermione?" he asked quietly. "I don't know. She skipped classes this afternoon." "Actually," Neville chimed in, raising his hand. "Barty said she wouldn't come out of the bathroom. He said she's been in there crying all afternoon." Aaron was taken aback, then glanced at Ron, who was happily stuffing his face. "Is it really that hard to apologize? Or at least try to make her feel better?" Ron just shrugged, clearly surprised Hermione was so sensitive. Just then, the doors burst open, and Professor Quirrell came running in, shouting frantically, "Troll! In the dungeons! There's a troll in the dungeons!" Everyone stopped and stared, stunned. Quirrell's voice dropped to a whisper. Then, he collapsed. The students stared at the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor sprawled on the floor, and panic set in. They screamed, even the older students. A troll? A magical creature that could challenge even a fully grown wizard? The thought of such a beast loose in the school, a threat to their very lives, was terrifying. "Quiet!" Dumbledore's voice boomed. He rose from his seat, and the students, on the verge of stampeding out, froze. The most powerful wizard of the century still commanded respect. A single word, and the chaos subsided. "Please, remain calm. Remain calm, prefects. Escort your students back to their dormitories immediately. Teachers, with me to the dungeons." Order was restored instantly. The prefects sprang to their feet, organizing their houses into lines and ushering them out. The teachers, looking grim, followed Dumbledore toward the dungeons. Snape, however, rolled his eyes and, when no one was looking, slipped towards a side door. But just as he reached it, a white figure blocked his path. "Out of the way!" Snape snapped at Abe, trying to push past. "Professor Snape, where are you going?" Snape turned to see Aaron. A hint of desperation mixed with his annoyance. "This is none of your concern. Go back to your dorm. That's where you should be." "Actually, I think it is my concern," Aaron said seriously. "Are you kidding me?" Snape's face darkened. I'm warning you one last time, don't block me. I'm not blocking you, Aaron said, picking up Abe. Do you remember your promise? To help me unconditionally before the end of the semester. Snape hesitated, then said, does it have to be now? I'm in a real hurry. Aaron nodded firmly. I don't know how important your business is, but Dumbledore doesn't seem worried. Why should you? Mine, on the other hand, is urgent. That seemed to snap Snape out of it. The frantic look faded. He was right. What Snape was pursuing was incredibly important, and Dumbledore knew that better than anyone. If something were truly wrong, Dumbledore would be far more agitated. The fact that he remained calm suggested that whatever Snape was after was secure, at least for the moment. Fine, Mr. Gaius. What is it you want me to do? Aaron visibly relaxed, a sheepish smile spreading across his face. Professor, fancy a trip to the girls' bathroom with me? Snape's eternally sour expression flickered. A strange smile played on his lips, the corners of his mouth twitching. I must have misheard. What did you say? The girls' bathroom. That I didn't realize you had such odd tastes. Are you sure you want me to know about this? Are you sure you want to waste your favor on this? A favor from a potions master is no small thing. Given the right ingredients, I could whip up a batch of Felix Felicis for you, and your family certainly has the resources. Aaron flushed, even more embarrassed. It's not like we're short on liquid luck, and I'm not a pervert. Hermione Granger doesn't know about the troll. She's probably in the bathroom right now. Better safe than sorry. I'm not confident I could take on a troll, but you definitely could, so, I'm asking for your help. Snape stared intently at Aaron, then sighed. Let's go. Aaron nodded and hurried ahead. Meanwhile, Harry, following Percy toward the dorm, suddenly thought of Hermione. After a few whispered words, he convinced Ron, and they slipped away from Percy in the crowd. They dashed toward the corridor where the girls' bathroom was, determined to warn Hermione, and so, two groups of people headed to the girls' bathroom, all with the same goal. Aaron and Snape arrived first, and they were in luck, or perhaps unluck. They found a massive troll, easily 10 or 12 feet tall. The troll looked dim-witted, with snot bubbles dribbling from its nose. It wore a couple of raggedy pieces of clothing over its gray-green skin. It lumbered forward, dragging a thick wooden club. An indescribable stench emanated from it. Even 10 yards away it was like the smell of socks and clothes that had been festering for decades, mixed with decades-old garbage. In short, it was incredibly disgusting. Even Abe buried his nose in his clothes. His sensitive nose was not happy. Oh, come on. Aaron groaned. Why did it have to pick the girls' bathroom? It seems fate has intervened, Snape said grimly. Secretly, he was relieved he'd come with Aaron. Otherwise, who knew what might have happened? Showtime, Professor. Time to prove why you're the head of Slytherin. Snape just glared. Saying it like that makes me feel weird. Don't worry about it. The important thing is that if you'd been a few seconds slower, the troll would be inside. Then, we'd have to change the battlefield, and if we had to rescue her, I'd be in the girls' room, obstructing your heroic fight. Snape snorted, glared at Aaron, pulled out his wand, and muttered, Petrificus totalis. A pale light shot out from his wand and struck the troll's head. The spell made the simple-minded creature see stars. It stumbled, but didn't fall. It just became even more clumsy. That got the troll's attention. Enraged, it turned toward Snape and Aaron. Professor. Aaron drew his black wand, a hint of disappointment in his voice. I can do that much, can you do better? If not, I'll distract it, and you can sneak in and rescue Hermione. Shut up, Snape hissed. While it has some resistance to magic, it's not much beyond what a skilled wizard could handle, and it's brainless. You could take it down if you were careful, let alone me. Besides, it's school property. If we can avoid killing it, we should. By this time, the troll was nearly upon them. Without a word, it swung its club down on them. Petrificus totalis. Snape and Aaron shouted, both firing a spell at the same time. The two beams of light, one white, one blue, struck the troll. Petrificus totalis. As it tried to regain its balance, 2 more spells slammed into its head. Finally, the troll's magic resistance gave out. It rolled its eyes and collapsed in a daze. Chapter 30 Saving People also requires rank. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom! A loud crash echoed down the hallway. Seeing the troll, this giant beast that went down after just 5 spells, Aaron didn't feel victorious. He just felt a little sick to his stomach. Even adult wizards might not be able to handle these trolls. What a load of bunk. With that kind of power and a pea-sized brain, anyone who knew a few spells could take it down. What a waste. I was planning on using the Snape card against Voldemort's leftover soul, Professor Quirrell, but now it's gone just like that. It's not like using a royal flush to beat someone holding a pair of 3s. Man, I just blew it. Aaron sighed. Snape's mood was the opposite. He just hit the jackpot. Ahem. Mr. Gaius, we're square after this. Got it, got it. Thanks for the help, Professor. Appreciate it. Just then, Hermione walked out of the girls' bathroom. The first thing she saw was the troll sprawled by the door. Her eyes went wide, and she let out a long scream. Ah! It's okay, Hermione, Aaron said immediately. You're all right. What in the world happened? Hermione asked, covering her chest, clearly shaken. Here's what happened. After hearing the story, Hermione felt a little lucky and grateful to Aaron. She couldn't have beaten the troll, and she might have been seriously hurt if Aaron hadn't shown up, but she was surprised that Professor Snape, who never got along with Gryffindor, had come to help. It didn't make sense to her. Thank you, Aaron, Hermione said, then looked at Snape with a puzzled expression. Thank you too, Professor Snape. Snape seemed surprised for a moment, then just snorted. The look in his eyes, though, was even more complicated than Hermione's. I didn't come to save you specifically. I was just keeping my word, Snape said haughtily. Honestly, Miss Granger, I should be thanking you. Mr. Gaius's request was a bit unexpected. Aaron's eyes twitched. Professor, really? That he didn't get why someone who was clearly a softie had to act like a hard-ass. Snape didn't answer, just gave them both a long look, then turned and walked away. Just then, Harry and Ron came running around the corner and ran right into Snape. Seeing the 2 Gryffindors, especially Harry Potter, Snape's mood instantly improved. What are you 2 doing here? I thought Dumbledore said all students were to return to their dormitories under the supervision of their prefects. You think you're above the headmaster's orders? Harry stammered. Ron was in the same boat. He especially disliked the professor, and he was especially afraid of him. They thought that just telling Hermione would be enough. They never imagined Snape would catch them. This wasn't just bad luck, this was a disaster. Well? Cat got your tongues. Snape pressed. We came to tell Hermione there was a troll in the school, Harry said bravely. Ah, Snape said, drawing out the word, then gestured to the troll on the floor with a sneer. So you thought you could defeat it? Think about what would have happened if Aaron and I hadn't arrived. You'd be dead, all 3 of you, at the hands of that beast. The 2 looked at the troll's massive body and hung their heads. Snape was pleased with their reaction. He couldn't help but smirk. 5 points from Gryffindor. You can't do that. Harry protested immediately, his face red with anger. 5 points. They had never lost that many points at once. You think that's unfair? Snape asked with mock consideration. Fine, 5 points each. That's 10 points total. Of course, you can protest if you think your lives aren't worth 10 points. Harry and Ron looked at each other, speechless. No one thought points were worth more than their lives. What about him? Ron said, pointing at Aaron. Aaron came too. Why doesn't he lose any points? Mr. Weasley, I'm delighted you asked, Snape said, smirking. Aaron and I came together. Is that reason enough? Ron looked at Aaron, the Slytherin, then at Snape, the head of Slytherin, and finally understood, right. They had the professor with them. In other words, they thought before they acted. Or more accurately, they looked out for their own skins, but he and Harry came alone, without telling anyone. Of course no one would protect them, at best, what they did was called caring too much. At worst, it was just plain reckless. Compared to the other two, they looked like fools. Ron was still a little ticked off. He opened his mouth to argue, but Harry stopped him, so he swallowed his complaints. Just then, Professor McGonagall and Professor Quirrell showed up. Seeing that no one was hurt, they breathed a sigh of relief. Professor McGonagall glared at Harry and Ron. What happened here? You two, no, you three, better explain yourselves. Professor. Hermione was about to plead for Harry and Ron when Snape shot her a look. Although she felt resentful, she still respected her savior. Professor McGonagall, I think our Slytherin student should handle the explanation, Snape said. Mr. Gaius is a reliable student, and I don't think he'll twist the facts to avoid punishment. Snape couldn't help but shoot Harry and Ron a smug look. All right. Aaron, can you tell me what happened? Professor McGonagall asked. Aaron glanced at Harry and Ron, who looked guilty, then at Hermione, whose eyes were still a little wet. He sighed. Professor, it's Halloween, and it's getting late. Maybe I should explain tomorrow. The three of us don't mind, but Hermione's a little shaken up and needs rest. Aaron. Snape said, displeased. This was a perfect opportunity to get one over on Gryffindor. There were usually plenty of chances, but not many involved such big mistakes, let alone Harry Potter. Making Harry cry would have put Snape in a great mood. Professor Snape, you already took 10 points from them. They've been punished, Aaron said, noticing that Snape's cold glare hadn't lessened. He quickly changed tactics. I think it would be better for them to admit their mistakes to Professor McGonagall. We're the only ones who know the truth, and I don't think they'll lie. Snape reluctantly agreed. Professor McGonagall would probably go easy on the Gryffindors, but she would definitely be furious if she knew the whole story. Harry Potter and Ron Weasley would have to take the heat. In the end, it wasn't too bad. I'll give you a day to figure out how to explain this to your head of house, Snape said, then turned and left the hallway. You two, you're on your own, Professor McGonagall said, glaring at Harry and Ron, then turning to Hermione with a kind look. She was the only Gryffindor first year who hadn't caused trouble. Miss Granger, you must be scared. Go back and get some rest. Thank you, Professor, Hermione said weakly. Let's go. It's not dead yet, Professor Quirrell said nervously. Suddenly, the troll on the ground snored, making the defense against the dark arts professor jump. The three professors left, and Aaron and the others headed slowly toward their dormitories. Hermione couldn't help but ask, what deal did you make with Professor Snape? Oh, man. It's embarrassing, Aaron said helplessly. Harry and Ron perked up and looked at him curiously, hoping he would explain. Okay, but you have to keep it a secret. Professor Snape wanted me to be Slytherin's seeker. I agreed, but in return, he has to help me out once this school year. As long as it's within his power, of course. So you asked him to come and save me? Hermione's face was complicated. She realized that she owed him a bigger favor than she thought. What else could I do? I heard the troll stories, and I was afraid I couldn't handle it, so I asked Professor Snape for help. Turns out it wasn't necessary. I could have taken him myself. I just wasted a favor from a potions master. Harry and Ron were stunned, but they were also worried about something else. Aaron was now Slytherin's seeker, which meant that he was Harry's opponent in Quidditch. That wasn't good news.